I really hope I don't lose too much sunlight while recording this, because I am recording this a lot later than I wanted to be. And it's not even that late, it's 5:30. What British people say about British weather is not a joke. For any of my American viewers, we get like 2 weeks in the summer where there's a heat wave, maybe 3 or 4 if we're lucky. And then the rest of the time, it's just grey. It's grey outside today. Like I do not know where the sun is. It's the end of July and the sun is nowhere to be seen. And to be honest with you, sometimes it's really depressing because my mood is greatly affected by the weather. So I should not be in this country. I'm going to be real with you. I really should not be here. But anyway, welcome back to my channel. If you've been here before, then you know that I collect physical media, not just games, but other forms of physical media as well. And I care a lot about physical media. I've never said why exactly. I haven't made a video about why that is. There are, I suppose, 2 main reasons why I like physical media. And the first one, which is fairly obvious, is proper ownership over what you're buying. And when I say ownership, you don't literally own the game if you buy it, you just own a copy of the license. But if it's a physical copy, then it's a copy that can't be taken away from you. Whereas if you buy a digital copy of a license of a game, then in 90% of cases, it could be taken away from you because the digital copies of licenses of games are always, or not always, but 90% of the time, are tied to the platform that you bought the game off of. So Steam, if Steam was to go down one day, then, well, all of that money that you spent on Steam, all of those games that you bought from there are gone. However, there are websites like, I believe it's goggames.com. I will put the name of the website on the screen. If you buy a game from there, it's not tied to that platform. You can download it straight to your computer and you can back it up on a hard drive if you want to, and it can't be taken away from you. So if you're a PC gamer, then you have a digital option potentially in which you can keep the game. If you're using consoles, which is what I do, I'm not a PC gamer, I buy all of my games on console. So for console, you can either buy games physically or you are literally trapped with using Sony's, Nintendo's or Microsoft's digital game platforms. That's it. There's no other options, or at least not other legal options. So that's why I prefer physical media from like an ownership point of view, because that's the best way to actually own the game you've bought, is to have a physical copy of it, because it can't be taken away from you. And most of the time, the game is fully on the disc or on the cart, but not always. And the second big reason for me is intentionality. With things like streaming services and digital media, you have all of these games at your fingertips. And it's very easy to just go onto Steam or the PlayStation Store and just scroll through the games that are on sale, perhaps, buy a few, download them, or just leave them in your purchased section and download them later, but you've paid for them. And it's very easy to just buy them and then just not play them for ages and forget about them. And with streaming services, you're paying a monthly subscription and you have all of these games. And the other thing is you can get choice paralysis, and this is something that I can very much struggle with. The amount of times that I've been on Netflix and thought, I kind of feel like watching a film or a series, and me and my dad would just look through Netflix and we'd just be scrolling for ages, trying to find something to watch. And you kind of get choice paralysis because you've got all of these options, but then you kind of end up just either not watching anything, or you watch something and you think, that was okay. I killed some time. And this is why I don't like streaming services very much. They're very convenient is the word I'm looking for. They're very convenient. I'm not going to deny that. And you have all of these games, music, TV shows, movies available at your fingertips for a single monthly fee. But it's only really worth it if you're actually watching a lot or listening to a lot of music, in the case of like Spotify and stuff, or if you're playing enough games to actually warrant that monthly fee. Basically, it's all kind of relative to how much media you are actually consuming through that subscription that you have. But the thing with physical media is it sits on your shelf or in a drawer, and you take out the case and you take the disc out, you put it in the machine, in the DVD player or in your PlayStation or whatever it is. And there's just this feeling of, I have chosen you. Because it takes more effort to do that, it feels a lot more intentional. It also takes me back to when I was younger, when I was a kid, basically. And the only option was physical media, for example, on the PlayStation 2. I remember that what we used to do as kids when everything was just physical media is we would go out and buy a game, and then we would come back and play that game. And then once we'd finished that game or played it so much that we've eventually got bored with it, then only would we go out and buy another game maybe, and we'd have the choice of what was available on the shelf in the store. Nowadays, it feels like because you've got so much at your fingertips, and this is kind of the case as well with physical games, because if you go on online stores, they usually have everything. All of the physical releases of games are available on online stores. So you can just buy them, whether it be Amazon or whatever, get them delivered. And this level of convenience is kind of taking away intentionality to a certain extent. And for me, it's basically about trying to find my preferred balance between intentionality and convenience. I don't like everything to be too convenient, because then it feels like I'm not being intentional at all with my choices. And if I'm using streaming services, then it feels like the website or the algorithm is literally pushing certain things at me that it thinks I want to watch or play, but that's not necessarily actually what I want to be playing. I prefer to kind of look for what I want myself, if that makes sense. I don't know if any of that sounds weird. Maybe it does. But I just kind of miss that. Having something tangible is what I like. I like that you have something tangible when you buy a physical copy of something. And for one thing that I absolutely never do is I never read digital copies of books. I don't have anything against them. It's just that I spend so much time on screens with like playing video games, scrolling through social media, watching YouTube. So especially with reading books, or in my case, manga, I buy all of my manga physically, which is more expensive. Not by much though, to be honest, because digital copies of manga are not that much cheaper than physical prints. But that means that I then have something that I can do where I'm not looking at a screen. So with manga especially, I'm very specific about only wanting to buy physical copies of manga and books and stuff. But still, I just like to have something tangible. Because if you have to put more effort into something, you know that you actually want to watch that, or you actually feel like playing it. Whereas if you just turn on your PS5 and you're just looking through PSN, or you're just looking through Xbox Game Pass, for example, which are very convenient services, don't get me wrong, but it kind of feels like Netflix. You kind of just turn it on. Or even like YouTube, because this is how I use YouTube as well. I'll be bored and I'll just think, I wonder if there's any interesting videos on YouTube I can watch, and I'll scroll through YouTube. There's nothing intentional about that. I just thought, I'm bored, reflexively opened YouTube, mindlessly looked down the home page and just picked something out of whatever because I was bored. It isn't intentional. And this is something that's become very big with subscription models, but it's also kind of like that with digital media in general, because it's all on one web page and you can just scroll and buy something and then download it, which admittedly takes a while, and then play it, you know. But again, I'm not against digital media because I think it's very convenient, and people that prefer digital media, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, this is just a personal preference thing in terms of intentionality. I'm just kind of old school in that way. But yeah, those are the two main reasons that I can think of, really. In fact, those are probably the only real reasons. And to be honest with you, I never really made the switch to streaming services or buying things digitally because I never really liked the idea of not having something tangible in my hands when I bought it. And I know that there's the argument that it's better for the environment to buy everything digitally. And you're not wrong, although to house these platforms that have all of this digital media on them, that costs money and it costs resources as well to be able to keep all of that data online, to be downloaded, you know what I mean? That's probably a lot of electricity they're using for that. But then with the physical media, obviously you've got all of this plastic waste. So you can't really win. Basically, because I am conscious of overconsumption, and that is something I would really like to make a video about, overconsumption, because there is quite a big overconsumption issue in our society, particularly with people that are into collecting stuff. Some of us do take it too far, probably. Obviously, like I said, I like physical media for the reasons I stated, but I try to consciously not buy too much of it. And that's the other thing that I like about physical media, is that you can sell it and you can buy it secondhand. So I don't actually buy all of my games new, even the modern games, because we have this chain in the UK called CEX. They sell secondhand games and tech there. And they're really good. They honestly have good prices in CX. They're not great if you're trying to trade games into them, because they basically give you hardly anything for what you're trading in. But if you're buying from them, they're very good. So there are actually people in the UK who basically do things like they might have a PS5 with a disc drive and buy the majority of their games secondhand from CX, because that is actually probably the cheapest way to buy games, particularly if you're a console gamer. That's why I personally like physical media, but let me know your reasons in the comments. And if you don't particularly care for physical media, that's fine as well. You can state your reasons if you want to share in the comments. Like I said, I don't necessarily think one's better than the other. Because I care about ownership over convenience, and I care about intentionality over convenience as well, I prefer physical media. But if you're the other way around, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, how people spend their money is completely up to them. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.